You're listening to The Mentality Show, only on LA Talk Radio.
What's up, everybody?
Hey. What
up? Welcome to episode 44 of The Mentality Show, shooting here live in Los Angeles at LA Talk Radio. You can catch us on latalkradio.com. You can also catch us on Facebook Live. You should know this if you're watching us now. So this is just information in the future in case you forget. So let me do some introductions. I'm your host, Delano. It's good to be here with you. I am alive and well and healthy, and I'm feeling good today. I'm feeling good this week. It was a great week for myself. And then I got my man, Sexy Texy, here to my right. What's going on, Sexy Texy?
What's going on? It's been a good week, man. Just been busy.
Busy with the business.
Flying
LA
drones, busy doing commercial real estate, all kinds of stuff.
LA Aerial Image. That's what's up, man. It's been a great week. Okay. Vato V.
What's up, baby?
What's happening, man?
Chilling, man. Relaxing.
Tell the people what's up. What's good?
What's up, mi raza? ¿Qué hubo? ¿Cómo estamos?
That's right. For all you people out there who...
What? And again?
Yeah, exactly. I have no idea what that is myself. I always say this is America when he talks about that, you know. So anyway, we have a very interesting show today, and let me throw the number out there so you can write this down because you're going to want to chime in on some of the things we have to say today. The number is 818-570-5085. That's 818-570-5085. And today we are going to talk about something very, very serious, and we joke about it on the show a lot. It's called the H's. The H's, okay? And we'll get into that a little bit more in a second about the H's in case you don't know, in case you're new to the show. But as you know, if you watched the show before, you know we talk about a lot of things on this show. We hit on everything here. We answer questions, okay? Questions on whether your lady in your life is a good girl or a hoe. And why Tech C drinks Bud Lights and keeps farting on the show. We talk about those type of things, all those things. And what else do we talk about, Sexy Texy?
From talking about the H's, so you're clear, to Delano losing his bet, and now he has to drink a beer.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about that in a second because we have some very special guests here today. It should be all about
I think he's punking out, so we might have to wait till next week.
Yeah.
No, they want to see him drink a beer, right, gentlemen? There you go. See?
These are pastors. They don't want to contribute to the delinquency of a host.
You got to like crack it open and just
oh, hell no, I can't do that, man. Maybe a swallow or two. The reason why they're talking about me drinking a beer is because I pretty much guaranteed that the LA Rams were going to win the Super Bowl. And if they didn't, then I would drink some of this nasty-ass beer here that the Texas drinks.
They didn't score a touchdown, right?
They didn't even score.
Hey,
I won $300 in the pool, man. I'm happy.
So you bet against LA?
No, the pool. My numbers were 0-0. So the first quarter it was 0-0, and I won.
Wow.
I won. My wife and I won.
Wow. So you're gonna take me out to dinner, right? I'll take some Ruth Chris. That's my favorite place.
I'm gonna spend half my money on you, or all of it.
Vato V, what are we gonna talk about today, man?
From the Super Bowl score being the lowest and pathetic to why Tech C is the only one on this table that's not athletic.
That's true. But he's working on it. He's been going to the gym. He's Tech C is something else.
For not being athletic, I can still drop Delano.
Okay, that's the jury's still out on that one. I'll punch him in his belly. He'll burp beer. That's what he's gonna have. Okay. So anyway, we talk about a lot of stuff on this show. We cover a lot of things. And one of the things we always talk about on this show and we joke about is called the H's. We joke about it, but it's actually a very serious matter. And basically, we always say, if you're kind of wondering what the H's are, we always say that in life and in dating, you don't want to catch anything that starts with the letter H. That includes hemorrhoids, preparation H, hepatitis,
A through C,
HPV, herpes, and of course, HIV. And jokingly, some of the women on the show, they've said a husband, too. So that's something, you might want to reconsider if that's going on in your life. But actually, catching any type of STD is no laughing matter, okay? And this show, we're going to get into two very special guests that are going to talk about these things and more on the show. We have two very special men from a walk of life that you wouldn't even think would have the knowledge of this sort of thing. And so we'd like to please welcome to the show Pastor Steve Peters and Pastor Steve
Pastor Keith.
Pastor Steve Peters and Pastor Keith Monzingo. Monzingo, I said that right.
Welcome.
Okay?
Got it right.
Mozingo,
Welcome.
perfect. Okay.
Great to
All
have
right.
you.
That's actually, you said an African last name.
It is.
I love that. I love that, being African American. So they are they are members and they are pastors at Founders Metropolitan Community Church. It's the I guess the acronym will be MCC of Los Angeles. It was founded by Reverend Troy Perry. It was founded in 1968. And it's located at 4607 Prospect Avenue in Los Feliz. We're going to get into more about where the church is located, because after seeing these two gentlemen and listening to them on the show, you're going to want to go to church there, trust me. These two men are part of the LGBTQ community, and we are happy to have you here on our show to educate us and our audience on this subject and more. Please welcome to the show these two men. This is Pastor Steve Peters and Pastor Keith Monzingo. Please welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Yes.
gentlemen. Welcome.
For coming.
Yes, so we have a lot of questions for you, gentlemen. We actually met you last week, and we were so impressed with
Yes.
some of the things you had to say. It was like an instant energy when we all met.
Yes, it was.
And Pastor Peters, you said some things that really struck us
Yeah.
with your history and your past and how you came to be who you are today. Can you please educate the audience on your life story a little bit?
Oh my God, my whole life, geez.
We have plenty of time.
Yeah, right. Well,
4 minutes.
4 minutes. My whole life in 4 minutes. Okay. Well, I grew up feeling, like I had this great, big, huge secret about which I was very, very ashamed, and that was that I knew I was gay from as far back as I can remember. And I knew, I just knew in my heart that there was something wrong with that. Well, I was really wrong about that. There's nothing wrong about it.
That's right.
And I found that when I was 23, I decided I had to come out. I had to get honest about being gay.
Now, you were 23. What year was this?
23, 1975.
1975. I want you to keep in mind, 1975. The word gay was referred to being happy. I mean, people didn't even really.
No, that's kind of a misconception that the 70s were a great time to be out and proud and gay.
Disco era.
That was the era of Harvey Milk and the disco era, and we were
Queen.
We were
right?
Queen, and we were fighting Anita Bryant and the Briggs Initiative, and all kinds of different political fights going on, and there were gay pride marches all over. And
In 1975, there were gay pride marches.
Oh, there as far back as '69.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay, okay.
Sure. And the gay pride parade here in Los Angeles, I think, began in 1969. And our founder, Reverend Troy Perry, was one of the founders of the
Now,
Christopher Street West Parade.
Why 1969? Can you please? No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. That's a good year. That's a good year, right? That's a good
Because
year.
God has a wonderful sense of humor. Why do you think?
That's true. That's true. That's
Why
true.
do you think West Hollywood is 90069?
There you go. Right?
That's true. That's true.
I
Wow.
didn't think about that.
Yeah,
Very true.
things are specifically put together for a reason. Yeah. So yeah, this was in 1969, and you were pretty much at 23 years old in 1975.
In 75. I came out at 75. I came out by going to MCC in Chicago, and I loved what I found there, and I decided that I wanted to become a minister. So I was. I went to seminary in Chicago, and then I became a pastor, and I went to Hartford, Connecticut, where I pastored the MCC in Hartford.
Wow.
And
So MCC is all over pretty much. The United
all over
States.
the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is MCC specifically designed, is church specifically designed to cater to LGBTQ?
Yeah, it was founded as a safe place for
Okay.
LGBTQ people to worship together. Because in '68, there weren't very many places that were safe for us to worship God.
Right.
And but it's opened up a lot in years since, but there's still a need for this safe space for gay and lesbian people.
So when you
trans
say
people.
there wasn't safe places to worship God, if you were out coming with your sexuality and in a church, they were pretty much telling you weren't welcome here no more, or
a lot of churches, you were not welcome to come to the church or come to the
We've
community.
heard horror stories of different. I have friends that were literally one was a music director at a very large church in Florida.
Right.
And when his pastor found out that he was gay during the week, and waited until Sunday until he was up in front of the choir,
Oh no.
and then
Oh, wow.
called the ushers up and announced to the congregation, "We've heard that our choir director, our music director, is a homosexual." And
Wow.
And you were there during this whole time?
I was not there, thank goodness.
Wow. Okay.
That they ushered him out. They came up on the stage and walked him out the middle aisle.
Oh, that is
right out of the
horrible.
church, escorted him out of the church.
See, that's
That's
Yeah.
yeah.
I grew up Catholic, and through the years, it just seems like the church is very hypocritical.
Yeah,
and
it
that's
Yeah.
why I find
It's
myself
like very
my own relationships with God at home.
Right.
I don't need to go and be a part of that. You know,
Right.
I just things like that.
It was
Stories like that.
it was looked at very like taboo, you know, I guess, to be homosexual during that era, you know. And you mentioned something about you know, that you just felt something inside that it was wrong, you know, or that you were.
Yeah, I mean, the environment that we all grew up in the 50s and 60s was very homophobic.
Right.
And you know, I remember my dad talking about those homos, and you know, I thought, oh my God,
Wow.
you know, he's talking about me and he doesn't know it.
Yeah.
And you know, kids made fun of me because I was a sissy,
Right.
and other kids who were, you know, sissy boys, and
Yeah.
I didn't like sports, and I loved musicals and Judy Garland, and
Right.
you know, all the stereotypes.
What
And,
was
and
the word back then? The I can't even say the word. Derogatory word was like fag, right? People-
faggot
yeah,
or fag,
faggot,
or fairy. I mean, I was
Okay.
called a fairy a lot when I was 7,
Oh wow.
you know, 8.
They say I'm sorry, go ahead, V.
No,
Go ahead.
the question I was gonna.
Were you just so interesting? Usually these guys don't ask
Yeah,
questions,
yeah.
but now they have plenty of questions.
See, but
today.
my question was like, you know, a lot of people want to know: are people born gay, or is it just the
Yeah.
environment, or what is the?
Keith, you
you
want
know.
to take that one?
Yeah.
Well,
Pastor Keith, preach to us.
I
Yeah.
could just tell you that people are born the way they're born.
Right.
Yeah, I was born that way.
I
Yeah.
always, you know, people will say, "Well, you just chose."
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, when did you choose?
Yeah,
Right.
right.
What was your day of choosing?
That's
where,
right.
Where was that?
Exactly.
right.
Can you take me back to that place?
Right.
Because
Right.
I don't think that really happened.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, doing the studies through the years, Kinsey did a study and found that there are some people that are absolutely 100% heterosexual.
Right.
And there are other you know, it's like the bell curve.
Right.
And then on the other extreme are the 100% homosexuals. Most people find themselves somewhere
In there.
on that curve and so what I have, of course, I grew up in the Pentecostal movement. Steve didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
And Pentecostal, there are a lot of what you may call soft men.
Right.
Because they're
yeah.
tender-hearted.
Right.
They're tender-hearted. They're,
Right.
you know, some of them may have been a little bit gruff in around the edges, but, you know, we worship. They would cry in church.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and not that they would necessarily be called sissies. So I
Yeah.
didn't have that same experience as
Yeah.
you did.
Yeah.
But we were taught that of course, we didn't talk about sex much at all at church, of
course
period,
not, yeah.
or
Right,
even
right.
at home.
Right.
Yeah, and you
So-
you mentioned on Sheena's show. She's here at LA Talk Radio. You said something very profound. I listened to the show, and you mentioned that growing up, you know, you just wanted to please God. That's all you wanted to do in life.
Absolutely.
But also you had this natural thing about you where you were attracted to men.
Yes.
And there was no one to talk to about this. It wasn't anywhere in the news. It wasn't anywhere on television. It wasn't in social media.
I
It was
thought I
just
was the
you
only
dealing.
one.
You thought you were the only
I
one.
thought I was the only one.
That is such a lonely place to be
I was
in
a
life.
senior
you know?
in high school when a rumor went around that there was a homosexual sophomore at our school.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to meet him, but I was afraid to meet him.
Wow.
Because I did not want the association.
Yeah.
Did you know
Wow.
Did
Wow.
you know who it was?
Yes, I found out who he was because the rumor went around school, but I never did introduce myself to him.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
And when I
remember-
was in college, I was still in the closet, and there were, you know, I was in theater. I was a theater major, and so obviously there were a lot of gay men in theater, and a number of lesbians too, actually. And I didn't want
Vato V does a
anything.
lot
I
of
didn't want
theater.
anything to do with them. I was scared to death of being associated with the other gay men in the theater.
What were you afraid of? I mean, I know it's obvious, but what were you truly afraid of? Were you afraid of being ostracized?
I was afraid of being condemned and ostracized,
Yeah.
and that my parents would disown me, and that I would, you know, just not. I would be destined. I mean, I remember my mother saying something about when I did come out. She said, well, I just don't want you to be condemned to a life of loneliness and decrepit, just hanging out in back alleys waiting for a sex partner.
Wow. So,
And I thought, that's not what it's about.
No, exactly.
so your parents were okay with were they okay with you being homosexual, or?
Well, yeah, my dad was, surprisingly. He was a varsity wrestling coach and math teacher at Phillips Andover, one of the oldest prep schools for boys.
Okay.
And so he was really gruff, and I didn't think he was going to like Mike coming out at all. But it turned out that my father was good with it, and he
Really?
Yeah. When I came out after dinner one night, he reached across the table, and actually he was the one who asked me, "Do you think you might be gay?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And he reached across the table and took my hand and said, "Well, you're my son, and I love you, and nothing can change that."
That's beautiful.
Wow.
That
That's
is
very
beautiful. Yeah, especially what year was that?
Great.
1976.
1976.
Yeah.
You came out to your father, and he was extremely accepting of it
Oh,
and
yeah.
did not.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And it's
a good
crazy
dad.
because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of fathers, there's a lot of parents out there that, they say, "I'm gonna beat the gay out of you because you're not supposed to be gay." Like, they're so ignorant and they don't understand.
Ignorance, yeah.
That's what I was afraid of.
Yeah.
I went to bed that night terrified that they were, not really telling the truth and that they were going to come. I was afraid they were going to come and kill me in my bed.
Oh wow.
Wow. See,
But
Very
even
scary.
though he'd said, "We love you,"
Right.
and I was still
scared.
terrified.
still
Right.
terrified.
Was your family religious?
Yes. Oh, yeah. My grandparents were missionaries to Korea, and my uncle was a pastor, a Presbyterian
Okay.
pastor,
Wow.
and my father was a deacon, and my
Oh, wow.
mother was chairman of the Christian education department at church.
Wow.
And yeah, so
That's-
we were religious, but it was I grew up in a congregational church in New England,
Yeah.
Okay.
inheritors of the Puritan tradition.
Well, we're going to get back to you, Pastor Steve,
Yeah.
on your story because there's something interesting really want to ask you. But Pastor Keith, your story, growing up, we kind of hit on it, your fear. And I remember you said on the Sheena Show also there was this library book you checked out. It was entitled, let me see if I remember, "The Lord is my shepherd and he knows that I'm gay." Okay, good.
Lord is
yes.
my shepherd.
Got together.
I'm not as old as I think.
Yes.
And you saw the title and you checked it. And you were so nervous when you checked this book out. You didn't
I
even
wouldn't
sign.
even check it out.
You wouldn't even check it out
No,
because
I
you
wouldn't
had
take it out the door.
yeah,
No.
because you didn't want
Wouldn't
anyone
put-
to see you
I
with
didn't
this
want
book.
my name on the card to sign out.
Yeah, and you said you would go upstairs to the basement.
It was literally because I was a senior in college.
Yeah.
And this is like 1980.
Yeah.
And I had wrestled with this for all these years, right?
Right.
And I thought, well, I'm about to graduate.
Right.
I have to find some peace. And by this time, Dear Abby, somebody,
yeah,
the advice columnist,
Yeah.
somebody had written to her about being gay. And she gave like one of the first positive responses that, you're
okay.
You're okay.
You're just like everyone else.
And so that helped me, but I thought I have to go find out what's going on. And I'm at a Christian school. I was in a Christian college.
Yeah.
Well, the homosexuality at the time, the only place to study it was under abnormal psychology. That's where it was.
Wow.
Abnormal.
In the basement of
Wow.
of the library, the abnormal psychology. And there wasn't a big section,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because we didn't have a lot of psychology back then either.
Of course not.
And so I found this all through the volumes. I found this little book called "The Lord is My Shepherd and He Knows I'm Gay," written by Reverend Troy D. Perry.
Wow.
And I
The
would take
founder
it
of the
up,
church.
the
Yeah.
founder of the denomination, and I thought, oh my God, I could have. It took me 3 days to read it. I would run upstairs to the third floor of the library and put books all around it because I was afraid something would jump off the page that would alert other people. Alert! Alert! Homosexual! Homosexual!
Right.
And it was like I had already
Were you
found
able-
out that another Church of God pastor's son, and I was Church of God pastor's son, I had heard about him. He and I were friends, and he had gotten kicked out of the college for coming out of the closet.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And he had pretty much been ostracized by the church and the denomination, and it was
You've been
a really
hearing
rough
about
time.
a gentleman who got walked out of church, and then this person here who was kicked out of college for being gay.
Yes.
So I can imagine the fear you were
I was
feeling.
horrified.
Wow. Yeah.
Because, it was just that it wasn't just my own problem, that it would bring this, we were reflections of our parents.
Right.
So
right.
it would make my daddy look bad.
Right.
That's what I was worried about. My mom had died in a car accident when I was 10 years old.
Wow.
And but my dad had been a really good mama and daddy both to me.
Yeah.
All through the years. And I had a stepmother. That's a whole different
He was a
show.
pastor,
That's
too.
a whole different show. But my dad was a pastor, and
wow.
and he was really good to me. And I had a similar experience. He had a rough time with who I was for a long time.
Wow. When did you come out to your dad?
It was in the early 80s.
So how old were you at that time?
I was early 20s.
Okay, same
Same
age as
deal.
Pastor Steve.
Right.
Right. Do you feel, looking back, do you regret not coming out earlier in life, or do you think that was just the right time to come out to your parents?
Well, given what society was at
Yeah.
the time, it wasn't just them. I was afraid of losing all. Steve said it best a while ago. You were going to be ostracized
Yeah.
from everybody. And even though the world started changing a little bit,
Right.
there were no positive role models in front of us.
No. Yeah.
And my dad said the same thing to me. He's like, "Oh my God, you'll never get a job. Oh my God." And I'd studied to be a school teacher.
Yeah.
He's like, "You're never going to be able to work with children. You're never going to be able to." And I'm just like, he said, "You're going to become an alcoholic and you're going to be homeless." And I just looked at him and I'm like, "Where is this coming from?"
Right.
None of the same with you.
Right.
None of what he described was what. And then I found out, it was only then that I found out that my daddy had a first cousin who had been ostracized from the family when he came out as a gay man.
wow.
So now you're hearing of another
And
ostracized.
he left our city, and when he left, he did a biblical thing. He dusted his feet and the dust off his feet and said, "I'll never, ever come back
Wow.
to Wayne County, North Carolina. I'll never, ever come back
Wow.
here." And he never, ever did.
In North Carolina, the South. That's
South,
that's
yeah.
down
Yes.
south where
Yes.
they hate
Yes.
people like me out there. And,
And me.
yeah. It's so I can imagine that.
Yeah.
We're homosexual. I'm sorry, we're heterosexual men here at the table. Vato
It's
Vitexi.
okay. We don't mind.
Yeah, it's okay.
You can't help it.
And we understand you can't help it.
See, now you just gave them fuel to mess with me. 18 shows.
Well, he's Metro.
He's Metro. He stays Metro.
Well,
Metro.
I'm. You know what? I am actually. I'll tell you why. You say I'm Metro, and I'm going to tell you
He's looking for his notes.
exactly here why I'm Metro. Because I am going to be attending Metropolitan Community Church
All right.
of Los Angeles. There you go. So you can call me Metro from now
We're
on.
all Metro.
There you go. We are Metro.
Now we're all heterosexual men here. I can imagine, especially at 23 years old in my early 20s, I was at my horniest at that age. I just wanted to just put it in everything and anything. So if someone told me, or if I grew up in a society where I would be ostracized to feel that way, I can't imagine what I would be going through.
Right.
I cannot imagine. I mean, they would have found out about me. I mean, when I was 14 years old. So I probably would have just come out and look, hey, I just want to just bone everything, and I would have been ostracized. But so I commend you, gentlemen, for what you had to go through and how you grew up
It was rough.
and dealt with that. Go ahead.
I have a
Vato.
question. One of the questions that I have is, do you think nowadays, is it a lot easier to be gay? Obviously, in social media and stuff like that, a lot of people, they're coming out. So do you think it's a lot easier for people to be coming out?
For some people, but it really depends on
It's the
what
style now.
family you're coming from
Right.
and what religion you grow up in and what where you live. I mean, I imagine it's still rough in
It is still.
Dade County.
We
What is
still
it?
have
the
a
South,
lot of young people that are thrown out of their homes.
Wow.
Yeah. And they
in
come
the
and they're
South.
homeless on the streets of LA.
Yeah, especially can you maybe explain the difference, because you talk with a lot of people of the LGBTQ community. I have to get that right. I'll miss a letter or something.
Just alphabet
That's
soup.
okay.
By the way, I should know this. And I do know this, I just want our audience to know, what does the Q stand for? Q.
Queer.
Queer.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so it's
Or-
lesbian, gay,
or-
bisexual, transgender, queer.
Or questioning is another.
Or
Questioning.
questioning.
You'll see another Q
Okay.
sometimes. The other Q is for questioning.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then there's I for intersex.
Intersex.
Yeah.
And A
What's
for
intersex?
allies.
Another A is allies, and another one is asexual.
Right.
Asexual.
Asexual,
right.
that's where
So they put in a bunch of
All sorts of
abbreviations.
all
Yeah.
So
It's a
many-
rainbow.
Yeah.
It's a rainbow.
We don't.
There you go.
We just say come. We don't care.
Is that right?
I got to ask you this, as men of God, we've grown up all of our lives hearing that if you're any of these alphabets, it's wrong. You're a sinner. You're going to go to hell. You're going to burn in hell. Can you explain to us and our audience why that is not true? Please.
God, in 1 John 4, the first letter of John, chapter 4, it says, God is love, and wherever love is, there too is God.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, for me to love another man, God is there.
Right.
Yeah.
And, it's just really clear to me now, and I think it needs to be clear that God loves us just the way we are. There's a hymn that goes,
He made us this
just
way.
as I am, and without one plea. That was a very important hymn to me when I was coming out. Wow, God loves me just as I am without one plea.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
And I met other gay and lesbian and LGBTQIA people at church who were comfortable being themselves and who believed that God loved them, and I wanted what they had, so I stuck around MCC.
Right.
But see, that the thing is that there's a lot of people in the world that are so ignorant. You know, like who the hell am I to judge anybody? You know what I mean? If anybody wants,
you're not perfect, I'll tell you.
exactly. Nobody's
We know you're
perfect
not
in this
perfect.
world. You know,
Yeah.
who am I to judge anybody who? You know, if you love somebody, that's the person you want to love. Who am I to tell you not to love that person?
But there's a stigma for homosexuals for some strange reason.
Right.
And I'm not really sure what it is, other than the power dynamic of male over female.
Right.
And-
Exactly.
And being male with male, then it leaves out that power
Right.
over.
Right.
And a lot of white male privilege is about power over.
Right.
Right. And so I think that it goes all the way back to way back.
Right.
You know, but homosexuality is sort of known as the unpardonable sin in the conservative movement.
Right.
And there are these scriptures. You know, they'll say, "Oh, well, Sodom was destroyed because, well, you know."
Right.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. Go and read what it was really destroyed for.
Exactly.
Judges points out why it was mostly inhospitable.
Right.
And
Yeah.
plus, that's a whole nother show on its own to explain those scriptures. We do like a 6-week study on homosexuality in the Bible and what's it got to do with anything. But if you look in the scriptures and you really do your homework, that's the thing. You're talking about ignorance. Part of it is that we don't, to use a pastor word, we don't exegete the scriptures enough. In other words, go in and really find out what was going on at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Why was this
Study.
even being written about to start with? And what was the culture of the day? And why would they make this statement?
Yeah.
And then when you find out that there are temple prostitutes in Paul's day in the New Testament that feel like they have to do this. You have to go to the temple and get a prostitute in order to please God,
Wow.
the gods of that day. And Paul says, stop.
Right.
And he says, don't do that. Well, he's not saying you can't go be with a prostitute. He's not saying you can't even be a temple
Good for
prostitute.
you, V. That's good news for you.
Is that good news? See?
He has an
You have
addiction for prostitutes.
You have
so-
permission. You now have permission.
You now have permission from the pastor.
permission.
From the
Hey,
pastor.
Look who's talking.
You hear that?
Good news.
Exactly. Right. Look at talking.
So the Apostle Paul is not talking about that. He's saying you don't have to do this to worship God.
Right.
God does not require this.
Yeah.
What you do on your own time and for fun, fine. Go have fun.
Well,
But
Dylan
it's not
wants to
about
know
that.
if there's anything
you know-
in the Bible about massages with happy endings.
That's what he wants to know.
That is my thing. I
don't
no,
know.
it's-
Jesus with 12 men running around behind him all the time.
Right.
You never
That's
know.
right.
And John was constantly lying on his chest, or as the King James Version says, on his breast.
And
Jesus'
in the
breast?
Old
Jesus'
Testament,
breast. They
David
were
loved
always
Jonathan.
clothed.
I got a
David
question.
loved Jonathan. King David loved Jonathan, Saul's son, and Ruth loved Naomi. Naomi loved Ruth.
And nobody's going to tell me that there was nothing going on between David and Jonathan.
Thank you. I mean,
Heaven's
when
sake,
Jonathan was
please.
killed, David sang a psalm of grief, saying, Jonathan's love to me was greater than the love of a woman.
Look at Brokeback Mountain movie, and you will see the story of Jonathan and David.
Oh, there it is.
It's a
Brokeback
bisexual
Mountain.
man and a gay man in love with him.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really all it is.
The Catholic Church. There's a big thing going on in the Catholic Church with
Always.
Yeah.
What is it
these
this week?
priests?
wow.
These priests having sex with these young boys, and I think that society is using that to hate homosexuals.
Yeah.
Because of things like that. You have
politics.
men who are doing things with younger boys, and
Yeah.
people stereotype all gay men as, oh, you're a gay man, so you're that type of person who's gonna take advantage of a child and that type of thing.
We were being accused of those things. That was one of the
Yeah.
things I was worried about.
Well,
That's
today
why-
it's happening today
Yeah,
as
even
well.
today.
That's why they didn't
It's a
want
stigma.
gay men teaching school.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But look at the culture of the church when they require their priest to be celibate,
Right.
and they're working with these young kids all the time.
Right.
That is their world.
Oh, most definitely.
And you said it a while ago. You're at your horniest. Blah 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 blah. Well, do you think preachers don't get horny? Do you think
They're
they
human.
don't have sex? Do you
You're
think-
human. Yeah.
I learned in the fourth
Yeah.
grade
Yeah.
in health class
Yeah.
Yeah.
that people have two drives, and one is hunger,
Right.
Yeah.
and one is sexual.
There you go.
It's just
Yeah.
that's normal.
We gotta-
That
we
is normal.
we
And
definitely
He
have
has
them
both of them.
when,
Yeah, right.
well, if you're normal,
He
you have
fucks his
both
food,
of them.
Texas. He fucks his food.
Hot apple pie. Might as well,
But,
might as well have a little fun along the way. Why not have both drives going at one time?
There you go.
There you go.
That's what I love about you too. You're
Yeah.
pastors. You're in touch with today's society. Like I just said the word "fuck" in front of two pastors. I remember when I met you, we accidentally met in the hallway, and I was just cussing up a storm with these guys.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to you guys, cussing, and then I was like, "So, what's your name?" You're like, "I'm Pastor Keith." I was like, "Oh,
That was so
oh
funny.
man, I'm about
Holy
to
going to hell.
shit.
struck by lightning right now." But you basically explained to me, hey, it's I'm not judging you. You know, be yourself and
Be you.
And and you were just so cool in meeting you in the process.
Delano said, fuck. We said, fornication under the consent of the king. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
I had to explain the whole thing, right? So, I have a funny question about I sort of do characters on the show, and one of the characters I do is I do a homosexual character, and a lot of people when they imitate homosexuals, I want to know, as homosexual men, why do most homosexual men have this in their voice? They have this little lisp in their voice when
Do
they
we?
talk. I hear it a little bit.
Really?
To be honest. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
my God, I've been
Well-
working on it. I thought I had lost it completely. Oh, man, that just
damn.
makes my day.
It's the it's like an accent, It's like you're from Gayland or something.
Right. Well, what's wrong with that?
I would never ask that question, but you two are so cool, and I
Yeah.
know it's a silly question, but what do you know why that is?
Oh, well,
Maybe?
I think in back in the 30s there were movies with gay characters.
Yeah.
And they were usually, the foppish secretary to the boss or and they were always stereotyped as being just like this.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And there are gay men that do talk like that.
A lot of
you
them,
know,
yeah.
and so
I love it. So exactly. So what? So what? Exactly.
So
That's
what?
what the kid said. So what?
So what?
That's the best answer right there. That is the best answer. I love it. That's probably the best answer to any question we've asked on this show, right?
Yeah.
So what?
But it doesn't offend me if your character speaks that way, because that's how because I know where your heart is.
Yeah.
Right.
If you were saying that to try to
Make fun.
Dis-
make
Disrespectful.
fun to be painful,
with hatred.
Hatred.
that
There's
would
a
be a
hatred
whole
tone.
different
If it's
world.
hateful,
Exactly.
it's different. But if
But it
it's-
doesn't bother
if it's
me.
with a good heart.
I do straight characters once in a while.
I love it. I love
It's
it.
true. We
It
play
scares people,
butch.
but I do it.
We pretend to watch football and drink beer.
Not all of us. You and I are going to be friends. I'm not. I'll keep the beer coming for you.
There you go.
There you
I'm
go.
not going to watch. the
He-
ball
he's-
games.
he's- we talk about, this is a safe haven, this show. We welcome everyone and anyone of,
And that's exactly what we do at church.
and that's
Everyone.
exactly, I was just leading to that right
Everyone.
there. Yeah. So you should have us come to your church, the
Yeah.
Mentality
Please do.
Show. We would love to come to the church and maybe
let's
do
do
a
it.
presentation there.
Yeah.
And maybe do a streetwalker segment on the church and
Yeah.
talk to a lot of people, because that's a huge subject these days. The I had to write it down, LGBTQ community. I have a question regarding that. So you have different types of, I guess, sexuality choices.
No.
What would make the
beings,
difference?
Not choices.
Oh, you're right. I'm
Beings.
sorry. Beings. So right. You're so. Thank you so much for correcting me on that.
It's okay.
So transgender, is that like taking it to a higher level, or like what would what would the difference be in someone being gay and then someone being transgender? They just made the choice to.
Transgender is very different than being.
Could you explain?
Lesbian or gay or bisexual. Transgender isn't about sex per se. Yeah. It's about gender.
Yeah.
And so if you are a man who believes that he was born in the wrong body, believes that he should be a woman, that doesn't have anything to do with your sexuality necessarily.
Or who you're attracted to.
Or who you're attracted to.
So you can be a transgender. Let's say I decide to become a woman, and I could still date women because it has nothing to do with my sexuality. It's all about how I feel inside.
How you feel about yourself.
Interesting.
Now, would Caitlyn be considered lesbian if she was to date a female, or now that she's
transgender?
Well, she has to identify herself.
Right. I don't know.
You'll have to get some transgender people on here to
we
ask.
Would you
know what?
We have transgender people.
And we have lots of them.
I was going to ask you. Yeah, we're going to talk after the show about maybe getting a few transgender people on our show, because that would be.
Oh, and they should have Lucia on this show.
Lucia,
yeah,
Lucia sounds interesting
Lucia
already.
Chappelle is an African American radical lesbian feminist minister.
That's a lot of titles.
Who was married to a man for many years.
She was married to a man for many years, but she also has had a lot of lesbian relationships. Not a lot, but I mean, she's had lesbian relationships.
Yeah.
Are you saying, what was the H over there? Is she a hoe?
She's a hoe.
And you know,
it's another H.
You know,
Lucia, are you watching?
Really, hi, Lucia.
Hi, Lucia.
That's the only H I want in my life as a hoe.
Getting to the H's. When I was, I was diagnosed with HIV. I was diagnosed with what was then called GRID, which is what they then called AIDS.
Right.
Gay-related immunodeficiency. And I was extremely ill in 1982 and 1983, in the first years of the AIDS crisis, and was in 1984 diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma.
Wow.
Kaposi sarcoma, 2 kinds of terminal cancer, and full-blown AIDS.
Wow.
And I was given 8 months to live.
Oh, wow.
Well, during the 2 years that led up to that, I was so sick I could not leave the house. I was so sick I couldn't do much of anything for myself. And Lucia, Pastor Lucia Chappelle, she was the one who took care of me. Gay men wouldn't have anything to do with me, and certainly straight men wouldn't, but gay men were scared to death of me, literally scared to death, because I represented everything they were most afraid of.
Right.
And so it was lesbians who took care of me in those early years.
Wow.
And this is the 80s. This is, for those of you millennials out there, you won't understand this, but in the 80s, AIDS was equivalent to, there's nothing like it today that you can even compare it to.
Right.
It was
It's a death
like
sentence.
an instant death sentence, exactly.
Right.
Ebola.
Exactly. It was equivalent to Ebola.
Nobody
Absolutely.
lived.
Nobody lived.
No, everybody died. And
you made it through.
I did, and I remember them telling me at the time, you have 2 kinds of terminal cancer and full-blown AIDS. You're going to die in 8 months, and there's nothing we can do.
Wow. And how long? And and you're here, what, 30 something years later? 40 years later?
40 years later.
40 years.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And my doctor, fortunately, did tell me, there's nothing we can do for you, but you can do a lot for you. The church can do more for you than we can in the medical world right now. Wow. But you can also do a lot to create the conditions for healing in your body.
Right.
So you go out and you devise a wellness plan that is going to help you stay as healthy as possible. So when we come up with a medicine to treat it, you'll be ready for it.
Wow.
And that's exactly what I did.
So you're saying when they told you that you had to go straight mental on how to take care of yourself. It was all a mind thing.
That's right.
That is amazing right there that you were able to get through that stage.
It's a mind thing and a spiritual thing. I mean,
mind thing and a spiritual
I was
thing.
diagnosed 2 weeks before Easter as terminal, and my pastor, I was the associate pastor at MCC in the Valley at the time in North Hollywood, and the pastor of the church invited me to preach the Easter sermon. And that was the best gift anybody could have given me, because I had to look at what it meant to believe in the resurrection of Jesus Christ as a person who was facing death, certain death.
Wow.
And what I discovered was that if God is greater than the death of Jesus on the cross, as we see in the resurrection, then God is greater than AIDS.
Exactly.
Or anything else that
Exactly.
comes between us and fullness of life. So I could still be fully alive. I could still enjoy my friends. I could still laugh. I could still dance, and I did. I tap danced right there in the pulpit, to show them. Wow. And you know, it was that spirit and that faith that I could thrive and live that enabled me to do all I did to create the conditions for the medicine to work when it came available.
And when did the medicine become available? After you made that decision, how long did it take?
Well, a year later, they came up with a medicine called Suramin, which actually had been used for African sleeping sickness before that. But and in those patients, if they gave it to them like 6 grams all at once, and it didn't kill them, it cured them.
Oh, wow.
It was very toxic. So they discovered that it worked in the test tube to inhibit the replication of HIV. Wow. And so they said, we need a patient to go first, and you are healthy, pretty healthy, considering all the diseases you have.
Right.
Wow.
So, because of where you were spiritually.
Yeah. So if you want to, if you think about this carefully, but if you choose to, we'll put you on the drug first and see what happens.
Wow.
So you're pretty much like a guinea pig for these doctors.
I was.
Wow.
I was.
And then we talked a little bit before before we got on the show.
Right.
There's a movie, right? There's a movie that came out, and
Dallas Buyers
yeah, they
Club.
go.
Yeah,
Is
Matthew
that
McConaughey.
Is that kind of
Oh
Good movie.
boy,
Good
it
movie.
really brought back memories of that time. I mean, I was right there all over again.
Wow.
There was a Los Angeles Buyers Club too, incidentally, and people would go to Mexico to get these alternative cures. Chinese cucumbers and compound Q, and I mean, just all kinds of different things that hoped would work, and none of it did.
Just faith?
So they put me on this medicine. It was an experimental chemotherapy, and Suramin, within 6 weeks, my lymphoma had gone into complete remission, and my KS lesions had all disappeared.
Wow.
And HIV was successfully suppressed in my system.
You were the first one to.
So they put
amazing.
they put 90 other people on the drug around the country, and it killed a large percentage of the people
my
who took
God.
it, and everybody else died from AIDS except for one person in San Francisco.
See, that's God. That is God.
Yeah.
That is God
So
all
I'm
the way.
I'm one of
faith.
2 survivors of the Suramin trials.
Right.
Yeah. How can you? What's going on? Okay. let me ask you this: do you know the exact moment? Like in the movie with Matthew McConaughey, he went back in his memory and he remembered the time he may have caught the AIDS or got contracted with HIV.
HIV.
Do you remember your moment?
Oh, I'm pretty sure that. Well, I know at least one exposure I had. I remember the first time I ever had anal sex. First time I ever got fucked. Okay.
Fornication under the consent of the king.
Exactly. Was with a Methodist minister who was out in the 70s, and this was 1979. And I met him at a seminarians conference, a gay and lesbian seminarians conference. And we went to bed together, and he fucked me, and I bled. It was the first time I'd done it, and I bled. And 3 years later, 5 years later, at an MCC clergy conference in Kansas City, one of the New York pastors got up and said that this reverend had just died of AIDS.
Wow.
And I knew at that moment I had it.
That's when you got
that I
it.
was going to be diagnosed.
Wow.
Yeah.
We
I'd already
lost.
been sick.
We
Yeah.
lost. I'm not HIV positive, and I remember I was in Raleigh, North Carolina at the time in the 80s and early 90s. Before I was a minister, I was a music director there. After leaving college, I had found Metropolitan Community Church in Raleigh, and Reverend Steve came and preached for us in Raleigh, and I remember being spellbound by his story because we had lost some church members. We had lost in our denomination. We lost 500. We lost half of our clergy.
One third of our male clergy, and even more in our female.
It was
clergy
just
died
crazy.
of AIDS.
Wow.
It was just crazy.
A lot of people said that when AIDS first came out, that's a disease. It's a gay man's
It was a
disease.
gay disease.
That's God's way of punishing men who were gay and doing these sinful things and that type of thing. I used to feel, and I'm gonna be honest here. I used to feel like younger, being innocent, that I'm sorry, being ignorant that being gay was a choice, and it was a sin to be gay and that type of thing. But as I've matured and as I've educated myself, I realized, as you said, it's not a choice. It's something that it's just in you naturally, and even if you try to get rid of it or whatnot, they say it just can't happen, and I equate that to, when I was 23 years old, and to me trying to get rid of being a heterosexual man, I just can't do it.
Of course.
So I just
You know
really,
what I believe
really
the sin
feel.
is? I believe the sin is, and I've told many, many, many people this. I believe the sin is when you are living a lie.
You're living a lie.
That is
You're
very true.
not being
Who
who
you
God
are.
created you to be.
Exactly.
How can you not? How can you
Live with
please
yourself.
God?
Exactly.
And how living a double life or living with this secret, it just that's
It's
not
That's not who
that's
we are.
not holy.
That's not holy. You're living a lie. Yeah, you're not being honest with yourself and
So
other
the sin's
people.
not being gay; it's being a lie.
Exactly.
Right. And now that it's been years since you've done this, the second half of your life has been so much better, right? Now that
my
you've come
God.
out, and and with the way society is now, how it's becoming more acceptable, and that's it.
Right.
Do you predict when do you have a year that you can predict where homosexuality won't even be an issue? Like kind of like. Well, there's still racism around, and
sure.
That's
from the
always gonna
60s
be
and stuff
here.
like that.
Yeah.
Do you think that's how it's going to be years from now? People are always going to have some type of issue with gay folks, or do you think it'll become even more acceptable in the future?
Both,
Yeah,
I
because
agree.
the extremists are the extremists,
yeah,
and every generation brings more progress,
right,
more
a
openness,
little bit, yeah,
just a little bit each time. As you said, I remember before we had same-sex marriage. We were at one of our general conferences in Chicago, and Reverend Johnson, I can't remember his first name, who is an African-American pastor at Riverside Church in New York.
Why do you look at Vato V when you say African?
He came and he spoke to the ministers in a workshop, and he's a heterosexual man, and who's open to the gay community, and he's retired now. He's pastor emeritus there, and he said, "I want to tell you something.
Yeah,
Because he came from a Pentecostal background like I did, and he said, I want to tell you what the Spirit is showing me, and the Spirit says you will get on the books, on the laws, you will continue to get laws passed in your favor. You'll get same-sex marriage.
Wow.
You'll get, where homosexuality and crimes against nature will be taken off the books,
right.
or at least not being persecuted." He said, "But 1968 to now, I'm still black in America."
Yeah.
And he said I'm liberated
true.
on the books,
Right.
Yeah.
but there are still people that can't quite make
most
that leap.
definitely.
Exactly.
They can't quite get there.
Exactly.
And a lot of churches that are not letting them.
Yeah.
A lot of churches are not, I understand why people don't want organized religion. I realize when people say to me, "Oh, the church beat me up.
Yeah.
I can't go there." I'm like, yeah, they beat me up too.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal, and I want to tell you something because I preached about you Sunday.
And we got about maybe one more minute left.
It won't take that long. And that is what we miss by just being spiritual and not being in church, is that we miss community.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't have the people surrounding us to be there with our joys and our sorrows and our funerals and our weddings and our christenings.
Yeah.
And that's what we're missing. You've got a good church right here. This is church.
Okay. Church.
You have
And
support.
I'm the pastor. Okay. Listen to me. I know what I'm talking about.
Who claims to be the best looking one. I'm not going to go there. I'm telling you. He asked who was the best looking one.
Being gay
Before he
man,
knew we were pastors and that we were gay.
but you have to be honest.
I got
you have to be honest.
four hot men standing.
Oh,
in
you're
front
not
of me.
being honest,
I am
Pastor.
I am
You're not being
very
honest about these guys. Yeah. Tell
You're
the truth.
looking. If you're online, you're looking. They're all hot.
This guy, I don't know. This guy, maybe, I don't know. So, we want
This
to
guy definitely not.
we want to thank you so much for being here today,
Gentlemen,
for
thank you.
educating us, for educating our audience.
Thank you.
This was probably our most profound show, I will say.
Oh, yeah.
We were so excited to have you here today. Is there any last thing you want to say? We'll give you 20 seconds each to our audience out there. Maybe tell them a little bit more about the church, where it's located and that type of thing. They would love to hear
right
it.
off of Hollywood Boulevard near Silver Lake, near Los Feliz,
Right.
where Hollywood Boulevard turns into Sunset. If you keep going ahead,
yeah, I know
keep
it's
going straight,
Pardon
that
the
turns
expression.
into Prospect, and where Vermont and Hollywood come together.
Oh,
go
my
straight, go
gosh.
gaily forward, and you will come to our church on the next corner.
Pastor, stand-up comedian,
And
everything.
I do want to
Yeah.
say this. If you are HIV negative, I don't care if you're heterosexual, homosexual, anything besides asexual where you don't have sex, you should be on PrEP.
Yeah.
Go to your
And
doctors
using
and get
condoms.
Get it.
Yes.
Get PrEP.
Yes.
You don't want to
Get
get gonorrhea or
PrEP.
syphilis, you
Yeah.
know, and there's a lot of it going around.
Get PrEP.
Yeah, we talk about the H's, but there's gonorrhea, there's syphilis, there's other things out there like
HPV.
HPV, yeah, all those things, anything.
Hepatitis C.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about the H's because those you
Herpes.
can't get rid of. You know,
That's
so
right,
but at least they have penicillin, right? Is that what they gave you, Texie? For chlamydia and herpes.
You should know.
So we got to go ahead and end it here before we end the show, gentlemen. Thank you once again
Thank
for
you,
being
gentlemen.
here.
Thank you for
So
having
good
me.
to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely,
Awesome.
absolutely,
Awesome.
and I'm sure the audience is going to request you back. So be ready to come
Almost
back.
definitely. We
All
are
right.
Definitely.
Anytime.
We're around.
So before we end the show, we do this thing called Mexican Word of the Week. Vato V, it's your time. Give them the Mexican word. What's the Mexican word of the week, buddy?
water.
How is water the Mexican word of the week?
My girl gets mad all the time, but I never know what her problem is.
There you go. Mexican word of the week. All right, so that's been the Mentality Show. You can catch us www.thementalityshow.com. Past episodes on YouTube, they're all up. Texie finally
Yes,
put them all
they're
up.
all up.
And this one will be up this week as well.
Yep.
LATalkradio.com is what you're watching. Facebook Live. Catch us on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio. We love you guys. Remember, you're good in life, but with our help, you could be the best. We'll see you next week.
Vámonos.
You're listening to The Mentality Show, only on LA Talk Radio.